If you're human, I promise you'll relate to this. Imposter syndrome is real, and we all deal with it at different forms, at different levels. But there's a way to get around it, there's a way to fix it, and there's a way to create even while dealing with it. First things first, you have to understand what imposter syndrome even is in the first place. Imposter syndrome is just your brain telling you that you don't belong here because you don't have the experience to call yourself what you're calling yourself. For example, a lot of times as beginner artists or creators, the very first thing that we do is we go to our Instagram bio, we add digital artist or whatever we're wanting to be or aspiring to be, and we immediately put that as the title of our page. And what we start doing is creating content around that said thing where we haven't had the years and years of experience to where we should feel confident to be talking about said thing. I deal with this a lot, especially with my art and with my content. I do a lot of teaching on my content, especially with mindset and tutorials and stuff like that. There's definitely a lot of times where I feel like, who the crap are you to be giving advice on something that you also struggle with? For example, imposter syndrome, self-confidence in my art, self-doubt, different things like that. I don't think those things really ever go away, but at the same time, I think that one of the best things for us to do is to still speak about those things and try to help each other out along the journey. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, understand that all this is just your brain telling you you don't have the experience yet to call yourself what you're calling yourself. And to be honest, your brain's right. You don't have the experience yet. However, it doesn't mean that you can't still be good at that thing. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't mean that there's someone that can't benefit from you still talking about that said thing. For example, in this video, I'm talking to you guys about imposter syndrome, obviously. However, I'm not a professional. I didn't go to school for years and years and years to teach you guys about art. I didn't go to years and years and years of art school to learn about art. But I've spent years and years and years developing art. I've spent years being frustrated about my art. I spent years on different platforms in different niches dealing with imposter syndrome and these different topics to where I can combine all that experience and talk to you about it here. Doesn't mean I'm an expert. Doesn't mean that I got it all figured out. But it does mean that I've dealt with it and I can help you deal with it as well. Now that we got that out of the way, we all have imposter syndrome. It's part of our lives. Now, how do you get over it? How do we get past this level and go to level 2, right? The thing is, imposter syndrome never ever really goes away because it's all about perspective and it's all about relativity. If you're a beginner artist and you've never picked up a pen before and you're just starting out, you don't even know, you don't have the Loomis method, you've never sketched, you've never done anything, right? But you're saying, okay, I want to be a digital artist. No matter who I put you in the room with, if there's other artists in that room, you're going to feel inferior in some form or fashion. And therefore, you automatically will develop imposter syndrome because you feel like you're less than the other people in the room based on experience, based on obviously talent, skill, etc., etc. Same thing if I take an intermediate person or intermediate artist and place them in a room with beginner artists, they're going to feel superior and they're not going to deal with imposter syndrome. However, if I place them in a room with professionals or at a big corporation where they develop concept art and all this stuff for video games and this and that, they'll immediately feel imposter syndrome, right? And then same thing, if I place a professional artist in a room with Pablo Picasso, they're gonna feel inferior. There's levels to imposter syndrome where it never really goes away. However, it's more of a notification than it is a reality. Imposter syndrome is literally just a notification for your brain to say, whoa, you're not supposed to be here. However, here's why. And when you learn to look at imposter syndrome not as a bad thing, but as a notification, then you can start to get better. You can start to appreciate what's around you and who's around you, and start to learn from those different things. Another way to get past imposter syndrome is simply by gaining the experience required to call yourself whatever you're looking to call yourself. So for me, for the last 3 years, I've been a digital artist. I'd say really 2 years, because 1 year I just had a tablet, but I never used it. So I have 2 years experience as a digital artist. Now, granted, when I see people's art on Instagram or here on YouTube or wherever, and immediately I'm like, whoa, I could never do that. Automatically put myself in the imposter syndrome box. However, I know that they have 5, 10, 15 years of experience over me, where all I need to do now is practice. I need to understand that there's no way I'm going to be equal to some of these guys if I'm just starting. And that's another thing about imposter syndrome that you have to realize, is that, again, because it's a notification, you have to look at and dissect what you're getting notified about. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's as simple as, oh wow, I'm not good enough. Well, that could be true. It could be also true because, again, you're in a room with people that you shouldn't be in a room with. And so I wanted to take the time to just tell you guys, like, this thing never goes away. It's not, your goal shouldn't be to try to get rid of imposter syndrome. The goal should be to learn how to use it in order to make yourself better, in order to develop your skills, develop your talents, in order to gain perspective, in order to be a better artist for yourself and for other people, and in order to understand that there's different levels to everything. Imposter syndrome was never meant to be a bad thing. Again, it was only meant to notify you when you were in a certain room or when you were put into a certain perspective. Understand that when you gain that perspective of what room you should or shouldn't be in, it's then your job to evaluate why or why not you shouldn't be in that room. And once you get that answer, that's what you need to work off of. If you feel like you don't have enough experience, go get the experience. If it's skill set, go get the skill set. If it's simply because you're just starting something new, understand that it's just because you're starting something new. And if you're someone that's been a professional for years and years and years and you don't deal with it, understand that the people around you probably do. And it's okay. Imposter syndrome is completely normal. It's just a notification. It's not reality. Hope this video helps. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.